Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy Joselito, Los's Comic Journey. We are short a member tonight. We have one of our bodega cats. What's his name again? Be Unbreakable, Vic.
Yeah.
Well, that thing, yeah, that mess. He's not with us tonight. He's taking care of some important work stuff. So yeah, I got us tonight. Tonight's topic is a breakdown of how we read, collect, or invest, or all of the above. And that's it. That's what we got tonight. So stay tuned.
You.
Bodega Cats Comic.
Meow.
Yo.
That cat on paper killed me.
Yeah. So, like Joselito said, we back. We short a member. We're short one cat. We're short our producer. So, this is sure to go awry. And welcome to the shit show. So, if something clicks when it's not supposed to, you know why. So,
be sure to direct all that hate mail to Vic, not us, because he left us high and dry. He's like, I'm out of town, so I gotta figure this out.
you figure this out. Gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
So before we start, like always, definitely do this: like, subscribe, and just general comments, anything. We appreciate it, and just follow the channel. We're trying to grow. We're trying to give you guys different and new content every week. So we definitely appreciate it. You can just stop by and just leave comments. Definitely check out our last videos because some of those have giveaways in them. So all you have to do is basically just write a comment. So I'm pretty sure we'll be linking videos all over the place here at the end of this one. And definitely go check those out, man. If you guys want to win some free books, come on.
They don't. Did anybody get a giveaway?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
It's that simple, folks. You just gotta like make a comment. You could be like, "Yo, I'm on the toilet," and Vic will be like, "Yo, here you go." Right
there, you go. There's a book.
You might get a book or a Funko. I got my first Funko from Vic. It was an AOK box. I didn't even know what that fucking AOK box was. They had to explain it to me, but I got one. It was great. I love it. So
yes, sir.
Write a comment about something stupid, and you might get a Funko or a comic. I don't know.
That's it. Real simple. And of course, we are sponsored, not sponsored by No Name Grocery 2. Yes. So, we always have to shout them out, throw them in there because, they don't give us anything.
So, they don't. But if you're in the Worcester, Massachusetts area, check them out.
Check them out, man.
They got Spanish, African and American food, right? So very broad categories.
Exactly.
But that's to be expected from a bodega. But you might go in there and find like the best food ever. So,
that's how it is.
They might make you a sandwich.
It's the best place to find like everything you need all the time. Like you just randomly go in there. It's like, oh, I need this, and it's always there.
And you'll probably get cussed out by the guy at the counter, but it's all love.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. It's how we roll.
I'm on my phone. Why are you bothering me? What? You want to check out? What?
Oh, damn. All right, fine. Jeez. Yeah. So, like Joselito said, this is kind of like the title, working title. But How Do You Comic basically is a breakdown of if you read comics, if you collect just to like complete runs, if you collect to invest, things of that nature, right? Because everybody has different styles when it comes to this hobby. And we're not trying to say one is better than the other, right or wrong, whatever. It's however, as long as you're consuming the medium, that's all we really care about, right? That's the main goal, is that we want to make sure that people are just consuming the medium so that we can continue enjoying what we enjoy, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that about consumption of the media because I I remember growing up, and even to this day as an adult, right? Comic books, the medium itself gets shitted on, I think, by like the general public, right? But I gotta tell you, and I still say this, some of the biggest vocabulary words as a kid I learned from reading comics, right?
Yes.
I think it was like Infinity War number 5. And I remember, true story, I remember it was like there was one panel with Professor Xavier, Moondragon, and I think it was Jean Grey, I think. But they were they were communicating telepathically, and Professor X said something about metamorphosis, and at the time, it was one of the biggest words I could think of, right? And so I remember, I think I was in third grade, and we had a spelling test, and the teacher, there was like, all of these words that we had to spell, and then I think one of the bonus questions was pick a word of your choosing and spell that. And the first word that popped to my mind was metamorphosis, right? She was like, "Oh, great word," right? But I attribute that to just, again, reading comics, and also, I find that, and I'm sure the three of us would agree collectively that some of the best stories I've read have come out of comics. Like,
Oh yeah.
no disrespect to like fiction, like adult fiction or adult nonfiction or anything like that, but some of the best stories I've read, some of the most epic adventures have come out of comics, and some of the just prolific writing. And you can tell like the folks who do this work professionally, the writers, the artists, they take this shit seriously.
Oh yeah.
So shout out to all of you that are still consuming the medium, right, and keeping it alive. So
definitely, yeah. And I know, and myself included, like growing up, I always had a hard time reading and sticking to something, right? I always got distracted by things, and I would have to constantly read chapters over and over again, right? I would have to read the paragraph again because my mind would just wander.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until reading comics is when it drew my attention, and I can read it and sit there and be like, oh wow, like the stories that were being told was something interesting to me. So like I invested in them, and I was like, oh yeah, and I just consumed it so much, and it enhanced my reading. And then from there, I was able to focus more and actually read other things and enjoy that medium as well. But comics is what really got me into reading. If it wasn't for that, I mean,
yeah.
I don't even know where I'd be at right now if it wasn't for that. I obviously I'd probably still read, but I probably struggle with it. So
Yeah.
and it definitely helped me. And then, like I said, it's a good starting tool. And there are the vocabulary in comics. I mean, yeah, sometimes there could be some cheesy crap or whatever, but for the most part, the vocabulary in comics is higher grade level than like the newspaper or some other magazine types, and like you'll get higher grade levels in this. So it's not just kiddie fare. Like you'll get some good stuff out of it.
Well, I think too, like even very quickly thinking about like even the themes that come up, even if the storyline. So maybe the storyline structurally isn't always solid, but the themes that are in it are still really strong. So I remember when I was coming up, again in the 90s, it was like maybe the height, or maybe close to the height of the AIDS epidemic, right? And what do you have in Uncanny X-Men, the legacy virus, right? A disease that was targeting mutants specifically, right? And at that time, like in the 80s and 90s, HIV/AIDS was thought to really just target gay men, right? But in fact, I mean, it was targeting anyone who was having risky, unsafe sex. I'll say versus risky sex. And so, seeing this as a kid, even as a kid, I knew that they were drawing a parallel to HIV/AIDS, right? And then you see like in the comic book, like how it affected those who contracted it. So Ileana Rasputin, Moira McTaggart, I think Pyro, Revenge, who was like Psylocke, whatever the hell she was, I don't even know, right? Like she had it, right? Mastermind had it. And so you saw how it like ravaged the mutant community in a similar way to how HIV/AIDS had affected at the time, the gay community. So, just like all of these issues, these like themes, and I think there's a social and political consciousness without like being wokeness, no, but just I think comics were really good about representing the things that were happening at that time.
Absolutely. So sorry for the long commentary, but we wanted to get you guys into how we feel about this medium, right? And this breakdown is has that trying to think of the wording for this, but it's a breakdown of how we came to be in this hobby, right? And obviously collecting styles change over the years. I know growing up, my whole thing was I collected comics just to read them. I read all my books 100%, and I collected just to collect runs, right? There was no such thing as like key books or whatever. You had some, but most of the key books were out of my price range because I was a kid. and I couldn't afford any of those like giant, books from the 60s and stuff like that. So I basically just got what I got. I collected the runs and I just read them, right? Because I liked the stories and the artwork, and that was pretty much it. It only when I grew up and got older that I seen the investment piece of it and the resale value and things of that nature. So with that being said, here is our amazing high charts. So who doesn't love
So
high
fancy,
charts?
so fancy. Shout out to our producer for throwing the shit on us last minute.
Yes, sir. So the breakdown that we have basically is we wanted to do like a, how do you read comics, right? Or how do you consume the medium? What is part of your personal collection, right? What are books that you're planning on keeping for yourself, that are probably never going to move, going to pass on to your kids or whatever. And then the rest is, potential investment, resale books or whatever it is to some people want to have the hobby fund itself, right? Because the shit gets expensive if you're buying, single floppies or key issues. So a good way to kind of stay in the medium without kind of having too much out of your pocket is to buy books on the low end that potentially become, spec key books or whatever it is. And then you could kind of flip those books to use that money to buy other books. So, it's a nice way to kind of like, again, self-fund the hobby. So this is my breakdown. So the first slide here is, so I do right now, about 20% reading, which I know kind of sucks. 3 kids, full-time job, I have a hard time just sitting down and reading books, right? So I try when I can, and when I do, I try to focus on certain books, right? I can't just read everything because there's just too much. It's just too much and not enough time. But what I do is I try to read more like indie titles, things that they end in like 6 issues, 10 issues, whatever it is. It's not like, hey, read the Batman run, which is 126 issues right now or whatever. Like it's too much. Like I can't consume that, right? So right now my reading level is around 20%. I'm trying to like up that, but it is what it is, right? 10% of my collection, or what I do right now, is just for my personal collection. Starting out, all 100% was my personal collection. I didn't sell anything. It was just all me. But when I figured out that, hey, talking to other people in the community, it's like, hey, how about you try to, have the hobby self-fund itself? And it's like, well, they're like, how do you do that? It's like, well, sell some of the books that you don't want anymore, right? Because over time, your collecting styles change. There's books that you collected before, and now you really don't like them anymore. And it's like, hey, you know what? I can move these, use that money to buy other things that I do want. Yeah. So right now, I'm more in that investment phase, and just trying to move inventory. It's helping me buy other books that I really want and focus on. Like, so that 10% is books that I really want, right? Not just like, hey, I'm just grabbing this book because it's a key issue, or it's a grail book for somebody else. It's like, no, I just want books for me. Yeah. These are going to be my books. So I'm being more particular with my money. And then some of the money on the outside is also going for personal stuff, right? It's helping me, pay for other things outside of the hobby, which is actually pretty cool as well. Nice little side hustle, essentially. Yeah. So that's my breakdown. Let's see what he. So second slide.
Oh, that's you.
So second slide is. So another breakdown was, how do you actually consume the medium, right? So I know now in this digital age, some people still like to read the floppies. They'll buy 1 or 2 copies, and one will be like a reader copy, so that if it gets messed up, not a problem. That's mine. I'm reading it. And then one is for, to keep in mint condition. If you're trying to sell it or whatever, you have that extra copy. So right now, I still do buy floppies. Obviously you can see behind me, I still have a crap ton of books. But 100% is digital. I just read everything digital. It keeps it better that way. A lot of times I just don't have the funds to buy 2 or 3 copies of something. Just to be honest, like new books, $3.99, $4.99, $5.99, whatever the hell it is. The shit starts adding up if you get 2 or 3 copies of something. So I buy 1 copy. If maybe it's a book that I potentially have some kind of spec on, I might get like 2 copies. But for the most part, I buy 1 copy and then I just read it digitally. So I mean, it's easier. for me to carry around. I can have it on my phone, my laptop, whatever it is, and I can read it anywhere. And it just works out to be better that way. So I keep it that way. My book stays safe, and I can still read the damn book.
Yeah, no, that's real.
So next slide. So we on to. So Jose, this is on you, man.
That's why I was laughing, because I knew my shit was all like green. This is one thing. So let me see how I interpret the producer's chart, because collecting 0, investing 0, reading 100%. Yeah, see, look, mine is real basic. I'm a basic bitch. So I'll put it like this. I've said this from day one. Why did I say one and hold up two? Whatever.
Put it like this. Put it like that. There you go.
So I've said it from day one, right? That you know, I really lean on and appreciate the perspective that Vic and Los bring to this space, because they really are the investors. I'm more of the lifelong fan who does it for the love. I mean, not to say that, you know, Vic and Love have a love of it as well, but it's, for me, it's not financial. And, you know, and in the way that they've made it a side hustle and really like almost like a business for themselves, right? For me, I collect because I collect. Grew up reading like they did and just kind of stuck with that. It was the lane that worked for me, and I just stayed there. So, you know, growing up, I had a massive collection. I still do, somewhere in Brooklyn, and like, you know, I don't know, in Gowanus or the tunnels. I have no idea, but it's somewhere in Brooklyn. And when I left New York and I moved to where I currently reside, I over time, switching apartments, my spaces have not allowed me to have physical copies of anything. So it was really more of a pragmatic, you know, realistic decision to like downsize in some ways. And so these days, to Los's point, you know, I co-sign him. I read everything digitally. And, you know, how I comic is, you know, I will, you know, I'll follow a particular storyline, or like, you know, word of mouth, or, you know, something I'm seeing on message boards, or sometimes I'm as vain as like, oh, this cover is shiny. What's this? I'll buy that, right? Like sometimes I go, what is, right? Like this cover looks good. What's this about, right?
There's no problem with cover buys, man. People do it all the time.
I am, you know, sometimes I'm just shallow like that. I'm like, oh, this cover looks good. Surely the story inside is intriguing, and that's not always the case. But you know, and sometimes it is also character based. So a prime example with that, you know, I think episode 1 we talked about the New Mutants being one of the comics, if not the comic that got me into comic books. And one of my favorite characters in the New Mutants and in the X-Men lore is Magic. And so there was a storyline I had, you know, they've had like, I think 4 different volumes of the New Mutants, and the most recent volume, I've read it off and on. I think I read the first few issues that were written by Jonathan Hickman, and then I kind of backed away. Picked it back up again like during the Shadow King storyline where he was terrorizing the New Mutants, and then I think the story after that was the Labors of Magic, and that was one that concluded I think a few months ago over the summertime, and it dealt with Ileana transferring ownership of Limbo to Madeline Pryor, who has since come back from the dead, right? So for me, it was just it's either, you know, the storyline or the character, right, and what's happening there. Sometimes it's just the cover. It's shiny and it's glossy and it looks good. I'm gonna go pick it up, right? Sometimes there might be a particular writer that I enjoy, and I'm like, I'll follow them wherever they go, right? I still think about, like, I think it was Jeff Johns who wrote a really great run on the Flash many years ago, for a number of issues, and it was like the Rogues Gallery, like this big Rogues Gallery arc. You know, so it just depends. But like I said, you know, long story short, these days I'm digitally collecting, and there are some weeks where I don't buy anything. Like there are some weeks where I'll go online, or you know, I'm not going to read nothing because nothing. Either I'm not following that particular story, or I'm just not interested. So, you know, we talked about a few weeks ago, Los. You mentioned like, you know, these days it's hard to keep up with like all the multiple crossovers that Marvel has, right? And so they have another one. They have this Judgment Day crossover between the Avengers and the X-Men, and I'm like, too much.
Yeah.
I will probably, you know, skim that, you know, but. Yeah, so I'm trying to think what, you know, what's coming out this week, tomorrow. I don't even know. I think what I'll do is, and this is my pattern. I usually the day of, I'll just see what's actually out and make my selections then. Sometimes if I have an awareness of what's coming up down the line, I'll make a note of that. Like, oh, I got to check that out. But otherwise, it's literally like the week of and like, oh, what's happening? What's released today? And I'll go buy that. And if nothing's interesting that I'm looking forward to, I'll skip it. I do, there's a local comic book store that I love to go to, but I stopped going because admittedly I feel bad when I go there. Because nowadays I'm like, I'm not gonna buy nothing. And I feel bad like going there and not buying nothing because I used to buy a shit ton of things. I used to be on credit with them. I had a whole fucking tab, and now I'm like, I'm not gonna buy nothing because I just don't want to keep shit in my house.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things too, to elude a view, like again, doing the physical breakdown and the digital breakdown, right? And see here, obviously it's 100% digital. I think one of the like stigmas or kind of like this like bad juju in our hobby is people feel like, oh, well, if you don't have the floppies, right, or you don't have it and you only do digital, then you're not a real collector, right? You don't really love the medium or what, and it's like, it's bullshit, right? You collect how you collect, right? You have an online database of a shit ton of books that you buy and you purchase them, right? You pay $1.99 or whatever it is, right? Yeah. So you're still paying, right? You're still funding the hobby and you're still helping. Like, just because you don't have a physical copy of it does not mean you're not a collector, right? And I think that's one of the things that there's again, like this bad like little crap that these little clicks or whatever, that it's like, hey, if you don't have all these big boy books, then you're not a real collector, or you don't have this book or whatever. And like until you get a Hulk 181, or until you get an Amazing Fantasy 15, then you're not a real true collector. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, come on, like, who cares, right? None of us started out with all these books, right? I don't give a shit who you are. You did not start out just having all these books already, unless you were just handed them by a parent or a family member who passed away and had all these books already. There was no way you just started with these, right? You gradually worked your way up to them. So you collect how you collect, right? I mean, there's no wrong way. As long as you enjoy the medium, who cares, right? And I'm not going to shit on anybody for having low grade books or high grade books, or just collecting runs of certain things or only key issues. Hey, whatever, you're consuming the medium. That's all I care about, right? Because that means that it's going to continue on, and that's what I want, right? I don't want this medium to fail. Like, we love the stories, we love the art, we want it to continue, right? We want to pass this on. And I think when we do stuff like that and we kind of shit on each other, it's like, come on, man, there's no room for that here. We growing up, we were already shitted on enough for reading comics, and we were already like, oh, look at these fucking nerds reading comics. So I was like,
there was not to cut you off, there was a it's not even being shitted on, but like, just folks don't understand. So like, I remember like one year when I was in junior high school, I was reading in my room, I was reading an issue of Fantastic Four 2099. Remember that whole like 2009 era?
The 2099, yep.
Yeah, and there was a particular scene, and my mom walked in. My mom was like, she didn't know what the fuck, and she also was quasi-religious. So she walked in, and she's like, "What is this? This is demonic." I'm like, "Get out!" Right? Like she's like, "What?" She saw one particular panel, and she's, "This is demonic. Get out!" Right? Just don't understand.
Yeah. It's funny. So I mean, like I said, it's one of those things where like we can't just hate on each other for no reason, man. Like, we're all in this hobby for whatever reason, but we're in it and just enjoy it, right? I mean, if you're only in it for the investment piece, whatever, you know what I mean? If you're only in it for just the reading and the enjoyment of it, fine. If you're kind of like in that in-between space where like you enjoy the investment, but you enjoy the stories and the art and whatever, however you consume it, however you enjoy it, just enjoy it and like relish this moment that we live in, that it became so big, right? And comics are now a giant pop culture. It's fucking everywhere now, right? You see all these, famous people and everybody talking about, oh yeah, I used to read comics, so I did this, and now it sounds like, oh, now everybody used to read comics, right? So it became that popular. You have all these, famous actors wanting to be superheroes when there was this, the stigma where like if you were in a comic book movie back in the 90s, like your career is fucking done, right? You were trying to just hold on to like straws of like, oh, I used to be famous, let me just do this superhero movie. And it's like, that was the bottom barrel, like, oh man, you're doing a superhero movie, like, wow, your career really fell to shit. And now it's like you get paid the big bucks if you're in these movies, so it's so funny how that paradigm shift So it's interesting how the era that we live in now. So let's do a breakdown of producer Vic because he wasn't here, but he gave us his percentages here. So which I'm actually shocked by that. I actually do a little more reading than he does, which I don't know. I find
Also,
that I find that off. I don't know.
I also one thing that also came to mind as I don't know why it didn't hit me when I was reading your chart, but now I'm reading Victor's and it is hitting me, is that I don't know how the fuck you two would have percentaged this whole thing. Because I'm like, how do I percentage personal versus reading versus I'm like, this is too much. Like, look, motherfucker, like you're gonna get like, you know, no, like it's just like look, a pie chart with no percentage from me. Because I'm like, I don't know this shit. How did you and Victor be like, oh, 15%? No, too much. He probably made this shit up and was like, you know what, this sounds about right. You know, I'm just gonna put that in there. Ridiculous. I don't believe this whole thing is biased. The thing is skewed. I question it. But anyway.
Yeah, it's funny because again, I see Vix and I'm like 50. I'm like, there's no way this. I feel like I read 20% of my stuff and he's only 15. I'm like, I know he reads more than I do. So maybe my number's a little off. I don't know.
Like, how is he basing that? Is he basing on like his total collection and saying, okay, I've read this much?
Maybe it's based on like the total amount of books.
The math ain't mathing.
Well, I'm thinking based on like the books that you get, like every new comic book day, right? You break it down based off of that. So like if he gets, 10 books or whatever, right? And it's like, okay, 2 of those books are for reading, or I read maybe 2 of them out of the 10. One I keep for personal collection, and then the other ones are going to be to flip or whatever. So maybe something like that. I know my everyday, or weekly pickups, new comic days are a lot lower than his. So if I only read 1 of 2, I only pick up 2 books or 3 books, then obviously my reading is. So okay, man, I guess it works out. Well, whatever. so he said he does about 15% reading, 10% books for personal, and 75% are for like the investment side of it. And I think we're kind of like on the same page as far as that. Like we spoke about before, we kind of have this kind of side hustle that helps us pay for other books that we want in the personal collection. And what happens too is the reason why I think the investment piece is so large compared to like the personal collection is that the personal collection books are usually a little more expensive, right? These are the books that tend to be a little more pricey. So what happens is those investment books, you're going to have to sell 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 of those to buy one of the bigger books, right? So you're going to have to kind of like put that money into that, aspect of it. And then it's like, okay, I can take $2, $3 books, flip them for 10 or whatever it is, and then as you kind of build those up, maybe you can kind of get enough to buy, this $200 book, $300, whatever it is. So, it takes a little more in that investment side of it. So I think that's why that percentage is so large, and why it looks like it's so skewed. And then this is one that I kind of figured. I know Vic does read some of his actual floppies physically. So 25% he does read physically and 75 digitally. So, obviously more on the digital side. It's easier when, especially like Vic, I know he travels a lot. So carrying around floppies with you, not damaging them or anything like that, just having a place for them, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So obviously when you're traveling, digital is the way to go, right? You could just pop open your laptop, your phone, whatever it is, your tablet, and you can read it right there anywhere, and you can have an abundance on there, right? You can have fucking 10,000 copies or whatever it is. When you're physically carrying 10, maybe something like that, you're not gonna carry a whole bunch of them on you. So it does make sense, right, for that in that regard. So yeah, I'm trying to elaborate for Vic. Maybe next week he could come on real quick and just kind of, explain, and maybe hopefully he's like, oh, there were some things that we missed or whatever, who knows.
No, he missed his shot. Too bad. That's it. No, ain't none of that. Too bad. Next topic.
So that's it for us. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that little, breakdown. Hopefully you can kind of relate to what we're doing. If there's something in there that, you know, we thought we missed or whatever, write it down in the comments. We definitely appreciate it. Any kind of feedback would be, you know, accepted. We, you know, definitely take it so we can do better next time.
Yeah, tell us how you comic as well. Right?
Yeah, man, definitely, man. You know, so, you know, write that down in the comments, man. We want to hear you guys, you know, your thoughts and, you know, input.
We want to give you a fucking giveaway.
Yo, again, go back to those previous videos. I think there's like 2 or 3 videos that all have giveaways in them. So there's books out there to be won. You just gotta comment. So just comment. We know you watching. Just comment. Yeah. And you can win a free book. Yeah. So Jose, you got anything, man? You got anything going on before we get out of here?
Shit, you're asking me this now. You're Victor with that question. No, I got to see what's coming out tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah. I mean, hey,
I got a bunch of shit that I need to read too. I've like bought stuff and haven't read it yet. So I need to go back and start reading the stuff that I've purchased.
Oh yeah, same. I have books that I do definitely want to go back, and I'm like, crap. Like I know I have just stories, you know, story arcs and other things that I just need to read and get caught up on. I'm just way behind in my reading. Yeah. So you know, again, don't hate me, guys, because I'm not reading all my books. Hey, I just don't have the damn time. All right. So it is what it is. Nice. But yeah, that's it. But again, you know, like, comment, subscribe, you know, do all that. You know what to do. Meow. And, you know, I think I have maybe some unboxings coming up soon. I don't know if you see a little stack right there. I got a couple of books that I can unbox sometime this week. I'll be on JP's Budget Collecting tomorrow. I believe 9 Eastern or something like that. We'll be doing a review of Monsters Volume 7. So definitely check that out. It should be a nice, interesting review of that book. And yeah, that's it. Vic will be back hopefully next week so he can do all the, you know, behind the scenes stuff. Because, you know, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. But on that note, I appreciate you guys. And until next time.
Peace.
Bodega Cats Comic.
Meow.